One of the enjoyable aspects of writing is to be able to envisage a world slightly askew to the one we actually will live in. Hello, I'm Peter John Cooper. In today's 10-minute tale, we'll reimagine the world of a particular type of adventure. It's called simply Hartis. I was awakened by the sound of the deck guns. Boom, boom, boom. I could hear Hartis shouting orders. I wondered whether it would be expedient to put in an appearance, but Hartis clearly had matters in hand, so I rolled over in my cot and dozed off again. It was reassuring to have such a competent first mate. But again, the guns boomed, and somewhat annoyed, I swung myself out and, putting on a dressing gown, went up to see what all the fuss was about. "What's the trouble, Hartis?" Hartis was watching out with the spyglass from the poop. "Freebooter sailing under a black and white. They fired first." Hartis trained the spyglass on a speck that was disappearing up into the clouds. Luckily, we had the starboard watch at the guns, and the privateer sheered off pretty quick. Oh, it was a barbed comment, deliberately so. The starboard watch was comprised chiefly of women, and while their rate of fire was not as great as the other gun crew, their accuracy and effectiveness was nonpareil. I sighed. One more to Hartis, who had recruited and trained them. "Any damage to us, Hartis?" Hartis lowered the glass and swung down beside me. Hartis had grown a beard overnight. "Oh, I wish you wouldn't keep doing that, Hartis." "Doing what?" "Oh, never mind." "Damage?" "They got in a lucky shot, carried away a chunk of the upper works." "Casualties?" "2 dead." Better call all hands during the afternoon watch and we'll have a committal. I'll see if we can find enough pieces to fill a couple of body bags. Yeah, do that. And be thorough this time. We were finding shreds for weeks after the last engagement. Not pleasant in the hot weather. A score draw, I think. And better give everyone an extra ration. I was feeling magnanimous now. Broach a barrel of ale. We have several crates of Burgundy from that French voilier dirigeable we downed last week. I think the starboard watch would prefer a glass of wine apiece. I wasn't sure whether that was one more to Hartis, but I was inclined not to count it. The committal was a relatively civilised affair. Everyone agreed that Sarah and Mags had not been close, but as the disposition of the bits and pieces in their hastily improvised shrouds had been somewhat random, their differences were now ineluctably erased, as they were sent to sleep in Davy Jones' locker. Davy Jones, the cook, was always happy to keep a couple of body bags in his freezer. During the funeral, the two watches mingled, but there was a definite undercurrent of rivalry in the dancing. Twirling toes were trodden on, and not always accidentally. sheer power against finesse. Healthy rivalry, observed Hartis. I hope it wasn't going to lead on to anything more divisive. We were a small crew and needed a positive approach. I tried a little small talk, not my forte. Lovely outfit, Hartis. Oh, just something I ran up in my cabin last night. I think pink gingham is always appropriate for a funeral. Yeah. Yes. And that was about it. Now, make sure both watches buckle down to their yoga practice. We need flexibility and inner strength. Hartis was becoming slightly too overconfident in my goodwill. Free time over, Hartis. Send the crew back to their duties. Aye, aye. And Hartis swung a crisp salute, which seemed to bode ill for the remainder of our mission. As it happened, the rest of the voyage went off without too much incident. Hartis was a superb first mate, well organised, generally liked by the crew, and capable of dealing out punishments as needed. But our relationship became more troubling. Never aggressive or insolent, but troubling. Captain and mate are usually somewhat distant, but I could never make out what went on in Hartis's mind. Well, sometimes heavily mustachioed, sometimes smooth-skinned and blonde pigtails, occasionally adorned with long Piccadilly weepers. I found these changes mysterious and troubling. At the end of the voyage, much against my better judgment, I felt I had to dismiss Hartis from the compliment. "No, look here," I said, "I am resolute in this. It's not that you've been anything but an excellent first mate. You have carried out your duties well and better than most would have done. But Hartis was already walking away, coat collar turned up against the February rain. And sometime later I heard that Hartis had left the service altogether and had taken to running an inn in a country village well beyond Portsmouth. On my next shore leave, I resolved to visit the Eye and Monocle. There was, I felt, unfinished business. I had the blimp put me down in the village square. It was as cold and rainy as that February when we had last seen each other. Gathering myself, I pushed open the door to the parlour and went inside. Hartis was there, standing behind the bar, as neat and organised as ever. "Well, Captain, at last. I have been expecting you." "Really? You have?" "Oh yes, I always watch out for the Saucy Sal in the Airshipping Journal." But there was no time for further explanation. Come in. Warm yourself by the fire, sit there, and I'll fetch you a toddy." I was, to say the least, taken aback by the warmth of this greeting. I had assumed there would be a coolness, if not outright hostility. Hartis brought the toddy over on a tray and settled down opposite me. I began my carefully prepared speech, but Hartis waved it away. "It's a foul night. Where are you staying?" Oh, I don't know. I wondered if I could find a berth here. Of course, nothing would please me more. And so I stayed, felt warm and welcome, began helping out around the place. I didn't bother to sign on again. Perhaps my skyfaring days were done for good. And after a while, I felt as though I had assumed the role of first mate to Hartis's captain. It seemed an equitable arrangement, domestic. As I said to someone in the bar one evening, after all, home is where the heart is. Well, thank you for watching. If you liked it, it would help immensely if you could share it with your friends. And maybe they will share it with their chums and so on and so on. See you soon for another 10-minute tale.